I have this routine. Every morning on my way to the studio, I walk past this little urban park.
Hmm.
It's nothing special, some oak trees, a few manicured flower beds, a lot of grass.
Yeah.
And for years, I have treated that park as, well, scenery.
Right.
It's just the green wallpaper of my commute. It's pleasant, sure, but it feels so passive. It's just
So
static background noise.
that is the default setting for most of us, I
Yeah.
think. There is actually a scientific term for it, plant blindness.
Plant blindness. Wow, okay.
Yeah, we are evolutionarily wired to pay attention to things that move, things that have faces, things that might eat us. Plants, they don't register as dynamic agents in our world.
They don't seem like they're doing anything.
Exactly. We treat them like furniture. We appreciate the aesthetic, but we don't respect the
So
agency.
exactly, furniture. That is
Yeah.
the perfect word for it. But today, we are going to, I hope, just completely dismantle that idea.
I think we will.
We are looking at a piece of work that honestly made me feel a little embarrassed about how much I've been ignoring right under my nose. We are diving into a massive collaboration between the Smithsonian and Kew Gardens, simply titled Flora.
And honestly, calling this a book feels like an understatement.
It does.
It's more like a portal.
It really is. It's this huge volume that sits somewhere between, I don't know, an art gallery and a biology textbook.
That's the unique proposition of Flora. It marries two things that usually stay in separate corners, high art photography and hardcore botany.
Right.
You have these incredible, almost alien close-ups of plant anatomy images that look like they belong in a modern art museum, but then they're paired with the deep scientific context of how these things actually function.
There is a line in the foreword that I think sets the stage perfectly for what we're about to do. The writer mentions looking at these plants' common things like a daisy or a carrot through a macro lens, and they describe the feeling as landing on Lilliput, where old friends have been supersized.
I love that analogy. It captures the shift in perspective perfectly. Because when you scale these things up, when you stop looking at a flower and start looking at the microscopic architecture of a petal or a stamen,
You're not seeing a decoration anymore.
not at all. You start seeing machinery. You see the gears turning.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We want to strip away that passive green background noise. We want to understand that the park I walk past is actually a battlefield, a construction site, and a chemical laboratory all rolled into one.
All happening in slow motion.
Right. These organisms are aggressive, they're complex, and frankly, they are engineering marvels.
We're going to make the invisible visible.
So let's start right at the bottom, or I guess the beginning. It feels like a remedial question, like something I should have learned in third grade, but reading this made me realize I didn't actually know the answer. What is a plant?
It sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If I asked you to point to a plant, you'd point to a tree. But biologically, the definition is, surprisingly specific.
So what are the rules of the club? What gets you in?
In the broadest, most classic sense, we are talking about living organisms that usually contain chlorophyll.
The green stuff.
That's the green pigment. It's the magic ingredient that allows them to synthesize their own nutrients via photosynthesis, using sunlight to turn carbon dioxide and water into food.
And they stay put.
And typically, they grow in a permanent position.
Right. They don't get up and walk to the grocery store.
Generally, no.
Mm-hmm.
They are anchored. They have to make their living right where they stand. But what I find even more illuminating is defining what is not a plant. Because there are things growing in the ground right now that you probably think are plants, but they are total imposters.
Okay, I have a feeling you're coming for the mushrooms.
I absolutely am. Fungi.
This was a genuine shock to me. I have always mentally filed mushrooms under vegetables or plants. They grow in dirt, they don't move, they seem like plants.
They do look the part, but biologically, in the grand tree of life, fungi are actually much more closely related to animals, to you and me, than they are to plants.
Wait, hold on. A toadstool is closer to a human than to a daisy. That feels wrong.
It feels completely wrong, but think about how they get their energy. This is the key distinction. A plant is a producer. It is an autotroph.
Okay.
It takes non-living things, sunlight, air, water, and creates energy. It makes food from scratch.
Okay, that's the plant, the factory.
A fungus cannot do that. It has no chlorophyll. It cannot photosynthesize. It is a consumer or a heterotroph, just like us.
It has to eat.
It has to eat. It relies on carbohydrates formed by other organisms. It has to find organic matter carbon that something else created and break it down.
That is a wild shift in perspective. So if I'm walking through the woods, the trees are the factories making the product, and the mushrooms are Well, they're the diners.
Precisely. They are foraging. They just forage by growing through their food rather than walking up to it. They digest the world around them. So, rule number 1 of this deep dive, mushrooms are not plants.
Okay, noted. Who else is on the blacklist?
Algae.
Really? But algae is green. Pond scum? It does the photosynthesis thing?
It is green, and it does photosynthesize, but it lacks the complex structures of true land plants.
Yeah,
It
okay.
doesn't have true roots, it doesn't have stems, and it doesn't have leaves in the way we define them. It's a simpler, aquatic ancestor. And then you have lichens.
Lichens, you mean those crusty gray-green patches you see on rocks or old gravestones?
Yes. And lichens are fascinating because they aren't even a single organism. They are a partnership. A lichen is a deal struck between an algae or bacteria and a fungus.
So it's not one thing.
No, the algae lives inside the fungus.
It's a roommate situation.
It's a biological composite. The fungus provides the shelter and the moisture. The algae provides the food via photosynthesis. But it is not a plant in the singular sense.
So the definition of plant is actually quite exclusive.
It is. And this exclusivity has a history. Flora emphasizes this evolutionary journey. Everything started in the water. For millions of years, plants were just aquatic organisms.
So in that environment, roots weren't really for feeding, were they? I mean, everything is just there.
No, not at all. If you are floating in the ocean or a river, you are bathed in nutrients. Water is everywhere. You don't need a pump. So roots originally existed just to anchor the organism in place.
They were just grappling hooks.
Just there to stop you from floating away.
Exactly.
But then came the move to land, the Great Migration.
This must have been a massive shock to the system. Suddenly you have gravity, you have dryness.
It was the biggest engineering challenge in biological history. Suddenly, water isn't everywhere. It's down to the ground, the air is dry, minerals are locked in the soil, so roots had to evolve from simple anchors into these complex extraction devices.
Whole new job description.
Completely new job. And the source material highlights that this transition to land likely required a partnership with fungi, yes, the non-plants, to help those early roots access what they needed.
It's amazing to think that the entire green world we see on land, every forest, every meadow, is basically a colonization project that required a total re-engineering of the plant's basic anatomy.
It is. And as they colonized, they diversified. And that brings us to the headache of naming them all.
The science of names. Taxonomy. I know this can get dry, but Flora throws in some curveballs that actually make it fascinating. We usually use the Linnaean system, right? Genus and species.
Correct. Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist in the 1700s, he gave us that two-word naming convention like Homo sapiens for us, or Quercus robur for an oak. Historically, we grouped things by what they looked like.
So by their physical appearance.
It was visual. If it had leaves like this and flowers like that, it went in this bucket. Simple.
But then comes the DNA twist.
The DNA twist changes everything. Genetic profiling is rewriting the history books because it turns out looks can be very, very deceiving. The source gives this incredible example of the water lily versus the lotus.
Oh, I love this one. I honestly thought they were the same thing, or at least cousins. They both float on water. They have those big flat leaves, beautiful flowers. They look like they do the same job.
To the naked eye, they are almost identical in terms of their ecological niche. You assume they're closely related. But genetic profiling revealed that the lotus, Nelumbo, is actually more closely related to the plane tree, Platanus, than it is to the water lily, Nymphea.
The plane tree, you mean like those big sycamore-looking trees that line city streets, the ones with the peeling
The
bark?
very same. The lotus is basically a tree that decided to go for a swim, evolutionarily speaking, while the water lily is a totally different lineage.
That doesn't make any sense. How?
Perfect example of convergent evolution.
Okay, break that down for us.
Convergent evolution is when unrelated species develop similar features because they are facing the same problems.
Ah.
The lotus and the water lily both had to figure out how to survive in deep water. And it turns out the best engineering solution is big floating leaves and long stems. They arrived at the same design solution, but they came from completely different starting points.
That is mind-blowing. It really makes you question everything you see in a garden. You can't judge a plant by its flower, apparently.
Not anymore. And broadly, the book breaks down the plant kingdom into 4 main groups that show this progression of complexity. It's worth a quick rundown, just so we know the players.
Let's do the roll call.
First, you have the bryophytes. These are your mosses and liverworts. They are the simple ones.
The old timers?
The pioneers, exactly. They like damp environments. They don't have seeds. They don't have complex plumbing.
Okay, then who's next?
Then the ferns. They have vascular systems now, internal plumbing to move water around so they can grow bigger.
But still no seeds.
Right. They reproduce via spores, not seeds. A bit more primitive.
Then the gymnosperms.
That's a fun word. Gymnosperm, it literally means naked seed. Think conifers, pines, cycads. Their seeds are exposed, usually sitting on the scale of a cone.
And finally, the rock stars. The ones that took over the world.
The angiosperms, the flowering plants. Their seeds are enclosed in fruit or a nut. This is the most diverse group by far. Grasses, roses, oaks, almost everything we eat, they are all angiosperms.
Okay, so we have our definition and we have our groups. Now I want to get into the mechanics. I want to go to the engine room. And according to Flora, the engine room is underground. Let's talk about roots.
It is the perfect place to start. As we touched on, roots have two core jobs, holding the plant up and drinking. But the strategies for doing that are surprisingly varied.
The book differentiates between two main types, fibrous roots and tap roots. Break that down for us.
So imagine a fibrous root system as a net. It's a vast, delicate network that spreads out horizontally. It doesn't go very deep, but it covers a wide area.
And it's usually concentrated in the upper soil layers, right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
And there's a specific reason for that. Oxygen.
Oh.
Roots need to breathe too. They are living cells. Oxygen levels are higher near the surface. This fibrous mat is what you see in grasses. If you've ever tried to pull up a clump of turf, you know how tough that mat is.
Oh yeah, it's impossible.
That's why fibrous roots are the heroes of erosion control. They physically hold the earth together.
Okay, so that's the net. What's the taproot?
The taproot is the carrot model. Instead of a net, you have a spear. A single dominant root that drives straight down.
Drilling for oil.
Drilling for water, exactly. The taproot allows the plant to access deep water reserves that surface roots can't touch. It's a great survival strategy for droughts, but it's also crucially about storage.
We're going to get to the storage part because that involves some of my favorite vegetables. But first, we have to go smaller. We have to talk about root hairs.
The microscopic workhorses.
Yeah.
This is where the scale of Flora's photography really shines. When you look at a root tip under magnification, just behind the very end, there's this fuzzy zone.
Okay.
Those are root hairs.
And they are tiny.
Often only one cell wide.
Right.
But there are millions of them. Their whole purpose is to increase surface area.
Why is surface area so important?
Osmosis. Plants drink by moving water across the membrane. To drink a lot, you need a lot of membrane touching the dirt. Root hairs weave between individual soil particles to access microscopic pockets of water and minerals that the main root is simply too fat to reach.
And the crazy thing is how temporary they are. The book says they fall off after a few days.
Yes, they are disposable. As the root grows forward, pushing into new soil, new hairs form at the new tip, and the old ones behind die off. It's a constantly moving front of absorption.
This explains transplant shock, doesn't it? When you move a plant and it just wilts.
Exactly. When you pull a plant out of a pot, you almost inevitably rip off these tiny, delicate hairs. You've basically pulled the plant's drinking straws out. It goes into shock because it literally cannot drink until it grows new ones.
Wow. Okay, let's go back to that taproot and the idea of storage. This brings us to the biennial strategy. This was a real aha moment for me regarding why carrots are, well, carrots.
It makes total sense when you think about the plant's timeline. A biennial is a plant that lives for 2 years.
Year 1 and year 2? Simple enough.
Right. In year 1, the plant is just vegetative. It builds a crown of leaves and photosynthesizes like mad. But instead of using that energy to make a flower immediately, it banks it.
It saves it.
It sends all that sugary energy down into the taproot. The taproot swells up, becoming this massive sugar-packed battery.
That's the carrot we eat.
Exactly. That is the savings account. Then winter comes. The leaves might die back, but the root survives underground, keeping the plant alive. Then comes year 2.
The spending spree.
The plant wakes up, draws on that massive energy reserve in the root, and shoots up a flower stalk to produce seeds. It uses up the battery.
And what happens to the root then? Is it still edible?
No, it shrivels, it's exhausted, all the sugar is gone, it's been converted into flowers and seeds. The root becomes woody and bitter.
So when we harvest a carrot, we are essentially robbing the bank.
We are stealing the plant's savings account right before it gets to spend it on reproduction. We eat them at the end of year 1. If you left a carrot in the ground for another year, you wouldn't want to eat it. It would be like eating a stick.
That is essentially the definition of agriculture, isn't it? Hacking a plant's life cycle for our dinner. The source also mentioned a visual detail about wild carrots versus domesticated ones.
Yes. Daucus carota. The wild version has a slender white root. It's not the big orange cone we know. Humans selectively bred them to be fatter, sweeter, and orange, which is actually a relatively recent innovation.
It's amazing engineering on our part and theirs. Now, roots aren't just sucking up water and sugar, they're also chemical engineers. They are pulling up minerals.
The big three, usually. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Yeah.
Nitrogen helps grow leaves, phosphorus is for roots, potassium is for flowers. But Flora highlights a really specific, colorful mystery involving minerals. The hydrangea.
Ah, yes. This is the one plant where people seem to know, oh, if I add coffee grounds or rusty nails, it changes color. But what is actually happening there?
It's a mechanism that reveals the chemistry of the soil. You have the big leaf hydrangea, Hydrangea macrophylla. It can be pink or blue, and it is all about aluminum.
Aluminum, like the metal.
Yes. Here's the chain of events. Aluminum is a metal that exists in many soils, but its availability to the plant depends on the pH, the acidity of the soil.
Okay, let's break that down.
If the soil is acidic, that means a pH below 7, the aluminum becomes soluble. It dissolves in the water.
The plant can drink it.
The plant's roots absorb it. The aluminum travels up to the flowers, binds with the red pigment, and turns it blue.
So acidic soil equals blue flowers.
Correct. Now, if the soil is alkaline pH above 7, the chemistry flips. The aluminum is locked up. It bonds with other compounds in the soil and becomes solid. The roots can't absorb it.
So the plant is aluminum starved.
Effectively. And since no aluminum reaches the flower, the pigment stays its default color, pink or red.
That is so cool. The plant isn't just deciding to change color, it's basically a litmus test for the dirt it's sitting in.
Exactly. It's a direct visual readout of the chemical availability in the root zone.
I love that. It makes the garden feel like a laboratory. Speaking of laboratories and chemistry, we have to talk about how plants get what they need when the soil doesn't have it. This leads us to our next deep dive section, symbiosis and, well, cheating.
Yes, cheating is a fair word for some of these strategies.
Yeah.
But let's start with the honest cooperation. Nitrogen fixing.
We mentioned nitrogen as one of the big three nutrients. But the irony is, the air we are breathing right now is mostly nitrogen, right? About 78%.
Huge irony. We are bathing in nitrogen gas. But plants cannot use nitrogen gas. Chemically, nitrogen gas is two atoms triple bonded together. It is incredibly tough to break that bond.
It's locked away.
Right. Plants don't have the tools to do it.
So they are starving in a buffet.
Unless they make a deal.
Yeah.
And this is where the legume family comes in. Peas, beans, clover. They have evolved a partnership with a specific type of soil bacteria called rhizobia.
And where do these bacteria live? They just hang out near the roots?
They build them houses. The plant grows these little nodules on its roots. You can see them. You pull up a clover plant, they look like little bumps. The bacteria live inside these nodules.
A custom-built home. And what's the trade? What's the rent?
The plant feeds the bacteria sugars that it made from sunlight. In return, the bacteria have the special enzyme needed to break that triple bond. They grab nitrogen gas from the air pockets in the soil, convert it into ammonia, which is a usable fertilizer, and feed it directly to the plant.
That is incredible. It's a localized fertilizer factory running on solar power.
It is. And it's why farmers use green manure. They plow clover back into the soil. As the clover rots, all that nitrogen the bacteria fixed gets released for the next crop to use. It's sustainable farming 101.
So that's a win-win. But Flora also details a relationship that is, well, it's iconic. The fly agaric. The toadstool.
You know this mushroom? Red cap, white warts. It's the emoji mushroom. It's in every fairy tale.
I learned from the source that those white warts are actually remnants of a protective veil that covered the mushroom when it was a baby.
Right. It bursts through the veil, leaving those spots. But again, the mushroom is just the fruit. The real organism is the mycelium, the underground web of fungal threads. And with the fly agaric, this web wraps around the roots of trees like birch and pine.
It forms a sheath, right, that doesn't penetrate the root.
Correct. It's an ectomycorrhizal relationship. It covers the root tips in a sheath. The fungus is much thinner and finer than tree roots, so it is much better at scavenging the soil for water and phosphorus.
The better miner.
A much better miner. It gathers these resources and hands them over to the tree.
And the tree pays in sugar.
Always sugar.
Yeah.
It's the currency of the underground. But the book raises an ecological concern here. The fly agaric is so good at this partnership that it's becoming an invasive hitchhiker.
How so? It's not a plant. How does it hitchhike?
It travels on the roots of tree seedlings, shipped for plantations like pine plantations in the southern hemisphere. Because it's so adaptable, when it arrives in a new country, it can escape the plantation and displace local native fungi. It's a cute mushroom, but it's an aggressive colonizer.
It's amazing how complex these relationships are, but not all relationships are friendly. Some are just straight-up theft.
Parasitic plants. This is the dark side of botany.
Mistletoe. It's the romantic holiday plant, but biologically, it's a freeloader.
It is a hemiparasite. That means half parasite.
Okay, what makes it only half?
It has green leaves, so it can do its own photosynthesis. It can make some sugar. But it has no roots in the ground. It drills into the branch of a host tree, an oak or an apple tree, and sucks out water and minerals.
So it's stealing the raw materials but doing the cooking itself.
Exactly. And its dispersal mechanism, how it gets from tree to tree, is diabolically clever. It involves birds.
The berries.
Right, birds eat the white berries. But the seed inside is coated in a glue called vicin. It is incredibly sticky. The bird can't digest the seed, and when it tries to pass it, well, it sticks.
It sticks to the exit.
Or to their beak. The bird gets annoyed.
Yeah.
It flies to a branch and wipes its beak or its bottom on the bark to get this sticky thing off.
Smack. Right where it needs to be.
The glue hardens, cementing the seed to the new host branch. It positions the seed exactly where it needs to be to drill in.
That is specific. Talk about engineering your own distribution network.
It ensures the seed ends up high in the canopy, not on the ground where it would die.
So that's a half parasite. What's a full one?
Then there are the holoparasites.
The full vampires.
Exactly. Plants like the purple toothwort. They have no leaves, no chlorophyll. They can't photosynthesize at all. They are totally reliant on the host for water and food. They live underground, attached to roots, and only pop up to flower.
Spooky. Okay, we've talked roots, we've talked moochers. Now I want to talk about movement and structure, because again, we think of plants as static. But Flora has this section on structural engineering and movement that shows they're actually quite dynamic.
They move just on a different timescale. And one of the coolest examples of this is the contractile root.
This blew my mind. Plants that pull themselves underground. This sounds like science fiction.
It's a survival mechanism for bulbs, things like hyacinths or lilies. Imagine a young bulb. If it sits too close to the surface, it's in danger.
Right. Frost can kill it. Animals can dig it up.
Exactly. It needs to be deeper.
So what does it do?
It sends out these thick, fleshy roots. They anchor into the soil deep down. And then they contract.
Physically, they get shorter.
Physically. The cells in the root widen and shorten. It creates a wrinkling effect on the root surface. The book compares it to a radiator hose scrunching up. This contraction literally pulls the bulb down deeper into the soil.
It's an elevator.
A one-way elevator to the safe zone. Once it hits the right depth, where the temperature and moisture are stable, it stops pulling.
That is active behavior. That is a plant sensing its environment and moving to a better spot. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And then you have the engineering of support. Not all roots are for water. Some are just structural.
We see this in rainforests, right?
Go
The
ahead.
buttress roots.
Yes. In the rainforest, the soil is often very thin and poor. Nutrients are all at the top, so trees have shallow roots. But these are massive, heavy trees. To keep from falling over, they grow these giant, flat, fins buttresses at the base of the trunk.
Like support beams.
Exactly. They act like tension cables or the flying buttresses on a cathedral.
And prop roots, what are those?
Like scaffolding. Aerial roots that grow down from the stem to brace a slender trunk. Or stilt roots. You see these in mangroves.
The trees that look like they're walking on water.
The very same. They loop down from the branches into the mud. They hold a tree up against the tidal flow. It's structural engineering to handle moving water.
But the ultimate engineer and the ultimate villain of the book, I think, is the strangler fig.
The silent killer. This is a plant that turns the concept of a tree on its head. Most trees grow from the ground up. The strangler fig grows from the top down.
Walk us through the crime scene.
It starts as a seed dropped by a bird, maybe a fig-eating bird, onto a high branch of a host tree. A nice sunny spot in the canopy.
So it's an epiphyte at first, just a guest, harmless.
Harmless at first, it germinates, but then it sends roots down. Long, thin roots that snake down the trunk of the host tree.
Heading for the ground.
Right. Once those roots hit the soil, the game changes. Now the fig has a direct line to water and nutrients. It surges in growth. The roots thicken, they fuse together, wrapping around the host tree's trunk.
It's encasing it, like a cage.
It's literally strangling it. It cuts off the host circulation, its ability to move sap, and simultaneously, the fig's leaves in the canopy grow so thick they block the host sunlight.
So it stars it in the dark while squeezing it to death.
Brutal, but effective. The host tree eventually dies and rots away inside the fig's embrace. And this is the haunting image the book describes. You are left with a hollow cast.
A statue of the victim.
The strangler fig stands there, a hollow cylinder of roots in the shape of the tree it murdered.
That is incredible and efficient. It got to start in the sun without having to spend decades growing a trunk to get there.
It's a shortcut to the canopy. A deadly shortcut.
All right, let's end this section on a slightly lighter note. Literally, air plants. Tillandsia.
Living on air. These are bromeliads. They don't even bother with the soil. Their roots are purely for holding on, just gripping a branch or a rock.
So how do they drink, if the roots aren't for drinking?
The velamen. It's a special sponge-like epidermis on their leaves and roots. If you look at an air plant dry, it looks silvery white. That's the velamen reflecting the harsh sun.
But when it rains or gets misty,
it turns transparent. It lets the light in for photosynthesis, and it absorbs the water like a sponge. They drink fog and mist. They are harvesting the atmosphere.
It really is a different world. We've gone from the depths of the soil to the mist of the canopy.
And every step of the way, what we see is adaptation and engineering.
So let's unpack this whole journey. We started with a mission to strip away the green background noise. I feel like we've done that. My morning walk is never going to be the same.
I hope so. The key takeaway for me is that plants are not passive. That is the biggest misconception. They are active, aggressive, and highly engineered organisms.
They anchor, they transport, they store, they chemically synthesize colors based on metal.
They negotiate with bacteria, they cooperate with fungi.
And they strangle their competition.
And they classify themselves in ways that are constantly surprising us as we unlock their DNA. The fact that a lotus is closer to a plane tree than a water lily is a reminder that nature doesn't follow our tidy rules.
So what does this mean for the listener? Why does this matter beyond just cool facts?
Well, practically, understanding these mechanisms is the future of survival. Nitrogen fixing. That's the basis of sustainable agriculture, using plants to fertilize soil instead of chemical runoff. Understanding root systems helps us manage erosion and water tables.
And the fungal connection, the wood wide web.
That changes how we view a forest. It's not a collection of individual trees. It's a networked system. You can't just plant a tree anywhere and expect it to work if you don't have the fungal partner. It changes conservation completely.
It's all connected.
Always. Every single piece.
I want to leave everyone with a thought that came to me while we were talking about the strangler fig and the contractile roots. We tend to define intelligence or behavior by speed.
Our bias.
Animals move fast, so we think they are smart. Plants move slow, so we think they are dumb. Or that they aren't behaving at all.
That's our bias as fast-moving creatures. We're impatient.
Exactly. But if a plant can sense danger and pull itself underground to a safer location, or if it can plot a decades-long assassination of a host tree to get a better spot in the sun, how distinct is the line between plant behavior and animal intelligence, really?
That is the question. Just because they live in a different time zone doesn't mean they aren't thinking in their own way.
Something to chew on the next time you eat a carrot. You're eating a savings account.
And a very clever one at that.